today we're checking out this 85mm f1.8 for $300. It's got 2 ED elements, we got 11 aperture blades and a mount gasket, just to name a couple of things. And the image quality, well, it's actually pretty good. So this here is the Brightin Star 85mm f1.8 AF. Now, I've barely heard about this company either. They're a pretty new one, I think from 2018, give or take, and they've mainly been producing manual lenses, but this one is their first autofocus lens. But they've done a pretty good job. We've got an all-metal build, both the Sony E-mount version, which we're testing in this video, and the Nikon Z version. Both come in at about 510 grams. We've got a declicked aperture with 1/3 of a stop increments and a little locking mode right here if you rather want to control the aperture with the front dial of your camera. We get an AF/MF switch right here and a little customizable function button. Now, personally, I don't have anything against declicked aperture rings as a video shooter first. I know some people still prefer clicked apertures even on mirrorless lenses, but as a video shooter and for other video shooters, I'm sure the declicked aperture ring is kind of a welcome feature. And lastly, if we turn it around and look at this side, we got a 62mm filter thread and some slits here for the included hood. And on this side, we got our metal mount, little USB-C port here for firmware updates, and a little gasket. The last thing I want to touch on before we take a look at the autofocus performance is the manual focus performance. And the focus ring turns really nice and smooth. It's well dampened and I think it feels more expensive than $300. It's obviously focused by wire and there's no hard stops, but that's kind of standard for a focus by wire lens. Now, let's look at autofocus. The autofocus is surprisingly well behaved and responsive. There's no issues when it comes to finding my face and eye and continuous tracking, or when doing things like this, jumping in and out of frame. Same thing if we were to switch over to stills mode and check out the autofocus there. The STM or stepping motor does a pretty good job at keeping things as snappy as it can. And to be honest, it's not the fastest autofocus lens I've seen, but it's not the worst either. I think it actually does a pretty good job. So I don't think the autofocus speed is going to be a deal breaker for most people, especially if you're considering to use this as a portrait lens or for product shots, detail shots, that sort of stuff. Now, lastly, I do want to show you how this lens performs when it comes to focus breathing. Once again, it's not the worst one I've seen, despite this being a $300 lens. Now, when it comes to actual image quality, I have to admit that I managed to make kind of a mistake. So all of the shots from the castle and that whole area are JPEG shot in S-Log3. Not by design, but yeah, because I didn't check before I started shooting. But yeah, let's take a look at the test charts. If we take a look at f1.8, there's a tiny bit of haze and maybe just a tiny bit of chromatic aberration, but I'd say it's pretty minimal. It's actually looking surprisingly good here, wide open. Stop down to f2.8 and we get kind of a proper boost here in terms of sharpness and contrast. Corners are looking better. Not that it matters that much if you're planning on using this for portraits, but still, they're looking much better. One last stop at 5.6, and I think this is the best you're ever gonna see this lens perform, and I'd say it's not too bad. If we take a look at distortion, there's not a whole lot to report here either, just a tiny bit of pin cushion, which is kind of standard for these 85s. The autofocus areas kind of melt away like it's supposed to on an 85mm lens. I'm not seeing any busyness or any distractions, only that we're sometimes running into that classic wide open issue where we're shooting things like portraits wide open and we don't look at the ears and suddenly they're out of focus. So yeah, maybe 2.8 would have been a better choice for something like this. If we take a look at this shot, the bokeh balls, they do look a bit cat-eyed at the edges despite the 11 blade aperture, but overall I'd say it's not looking bad at all. Final thoughts when it comes to the Brightin Star 85mm f1.8. Now personally, I think it offers a ton of bang for your buck, not just in terms of features and the overall build quality, but also when it comes to optical performance. These budget-friendly prime lenses have become seriously interesting. So to kind of summarize my thoughts on this new 85mm f1.8, I think it offers a lot of bang for buck, not just in terms of the overall design, build quality and features, but also when it comes to optical performance. So there's not a whole lot to complain about when it comes to this lens. I do like the images. I think they're looking plenty sharp enough. There's maybe a tiny bit of character, some nice little micro contrast here and there, but it's nothing crazy, nothing that would put this lens into some sort of specialty lens category. We also get a couple of extra bells and whistles if we were to compare this to other 85mm primes in the $300 bracket. We're getting the 11 bladed aperture for that extra smooth and creamy bokeh. We're getting the seal on the mount. We're also getting the AFM switch and the customizable function button. So I don't look at this as yet another random 85mm lens. I think it actually brings something to the table. So if you want to know more about this lens, I'm going to leave a few links down below to some more technical details and obviously a link so you can pick one of these up for yourself. But that's going to be it. I'm going to go home, sit in the air condition and stop sweating. See you in the next one. Bye.